Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. Only we're talking dogs on a Tuesday. Yes, with the Derby lunch yesterday, we decided to postpone, get full reaction from the gentleman beside me, Kevin Hennessy, the child, and of course the exiled one, Tommy Lyons. Tommy, we'll start with you. We've heard lots from Kevin over the weekend. Certainly I have.
Mhm.
An unbelievable performance by Cheap Sandwiches, big run by Glengar Silent, a bit of drama and controversy in the opening heat. But in the end, we have a fascinating Derby final with, for the second year running, it has to be said, a red hot favourite.
Yeah, like a lot of it was what happened was predictable, with an obvious exception. But a lot of it was predictable what happened last week. I mean, Cheap Sandwich is just a class act, and he had been building up towards it. Started slowly. He came into the Derby slightly, maybe people feeling like that maybe he wasn't the same dog as last year, maybe he was slightly undercooked or whatever. But he's proven all of that wrong as he's built up to something special. The last three performances have been exceptional, and he's a deserving odds-on favorite in the final. And you know what? The one good thing I would say about the final, even though obviously you kind of want the best dogs to win and whatever else, the Derby final draw has made it the final as interesting as it could possibly be. I don't think there's going to be an issue with Cheap Sandwich being in five and Drubby's Deploy being in six. I don't think that, proper heiress. Does it really want to be in one? I'm not sure. It just makes a lot of things to put together to kind of figure out the final. But the semi-finals themselves, I thought, were quite predictable, but no less good. I mean, Glengar Silent put up a terrific performance. The performance of a dog that has improved and has improved through the competition, but he has so little racing beforehand. He was entitled to do that, and now he could be something utterly special as well. So it's a great final. It's worked out well, because there were times during the competition where I was concerned about how what type of final we might get, and you know what? I think with the Derby, it tends to work itself out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, it does. There's always storylines. Like from our
Yeah.
end of things, there's always something to talk about. There's always something to go around. Like we have a UK runner bidding to become the first UK train winner since the late '90s. We have Cheap Sandwiches, the dog who ran up last year's Derby. He's been in three Derby finals in the last 10 months, bidding to give Graham Holland a record fifth success. We have a bitch in the race that Kevin will be talking about that has a litter of pups in the ground that'll nearly be racing soon. You know what I mean? Like they're 13, 14 months, maybe not his ones, but I know there's one or two elsewhere that are galloping and whatnot and ready to go. You have, the likes of the Guilfoyle family again looking to win another Derby success. You have Paul Allen and Robert Gleeson out in Trap Sixers, Druppies deploy. And then, as you say, we have the youngster Glengar Silent for Pat Buckley and Tom Nolan. There's so many storylines there. It's a cracking little final. And by all accounts, Cheap Sam's is still going to have to go out and win it.
Well, and so it should be. So it should be. Like, it shouldn't be just a cakewalk. Look, I said before the semi-finals, the dog should have been odds on for it, because everything was the stars were all aligned for the semi-finals, and they worked out exactly as they kind of expected that they would. He would break quite well from the traps. His exceptional early pace would carry him around the bend in front. And thereafter, whatever happened in behind, it was a bit of bumping and whatever else. But I mean, he won by what, 12 and a half lengths in a Derby semi final. It's remarkable stuff. Um, it's everything points to him, and yet you can say, well, there wasn't an awful lot between the two semi-finals on the clock, and
Yeah, there's only 12 spots. Yeah.
you've got improvers in there. You've got Magical Mag, who's a terrific bitch, who's you can set your clock by her, out of traps. She's brilliant to get out of traps. She's probably going to go to the bend, maybe in front, maybe second, but certainly not, like, really unlikely that's any worse than second place around the opening bend. Only Cheap Damages, I think, can possibly lead her at that point. I mean, it's not a certainty the Cheap Damages will win it, but he's certainly deserving to be twos on, or 8 to 15, or whatever he is at the moment.
Yeah. Kevin, we were at the Derby lunch yesterday, and you always do get that impression. The fact that Cheap Sandwiches have been there a couple of times already, the connections don't seem to be too concerned by carrying the heavy mantle of odds on favoritism. But as a result of him being there, the rest all seem to be like, what will be, will be. And like there were nerves there yesterday, but I think it was more excitement. And it is different going into a race when you're 6 or 7 or 8 to 1 compared to going into a race at 8 to 15.
Oh, 100%. It's gas. Like on Saturday night, I was talking obviously to the father on the way home, and I was saying, like, job done, achievement completed, just great to be there for the week. No chance in the final. And come Monday afternoon, about 2 or 3 o'clock, when I was heading home, and he rang me just to go through what the trials were, I was saying, "Jesus, like, if she did this, and it's just going to happen, like that was by Monday afternoon. I had her in the first three. Come Saturday night, and I've myself convinced she's going to win it." And that's just the case for everybody. Like you said, when you've got an odds-on shot in it, there is that bit more pressure. Like Jet wasn't odds on, but he'd been a favourite anti-post and been favourite the way through. And I remember his final. Like it was definitely a completely different feeling. Even when Blake then won it, like you weren't expected, and you have a free hit. Like, do you know what I mean? You're standing on the tee box. I don't play golf, but for those of you that do, like standing on the tee box and just forgetting where you're aiming, just pull as hard as you can. And that's like when you're double figures in a derby, that's what you can do. You can be afforded
Yeah.
that. Um, but like I'm really happy for cheap sandwiches, almost in a different way. When Bocco's Diamond was pulled out of this derby, I was half afraid that whoever won the Derby, it would be remembered as the one to know that Boccos wasn't there. We haven't spoken about Boccos the last 2 weeks, and I think that that's a big part down to cheap sandwiches in particular, because not only has he picked up the mantle, but he's soared with it. Like he has just taken off the last couple of weeks, and like, and I'm not knocking Boccos Diamond, but the way cheap sandwiches is running now, like when you think back to how Boccos was running, like I'm not so sure that this version of cheap sandwiches, wouldn't, even if Boccos was still around, I don't think, like he put him to the pin of his collar. Like that's how good he's running. Like he's there on merit. The fact we haven't spoken about Boccos for the last couple of weeks, I think, is testament to what Graham and connections have got out of him. And look, you're the historian here between us, but I can't remember a dog that was second the year before and come back and win it. It would be an amazing achievement. I can't imagine it's been done that many times. So, just to add storylines to what you're describing, like there's any amount of them, and like I said to you, probably after the third round, you'd want a heart of stone if you wouldn't feel good if cheap sandwiches crossed the line in front on Saturday night.
I have to check. I have to check my record books, but there definitely is one, and
Yeah.
it might be as all far back as you think.
Okay.
But bear with me. I'll be leaning down for a moment in a second.
Don't fall off the chair.
Cheap, yeah, that'd be a great way to finish the podcast. Cheap sandwiches. I feel he's probably a better dog than last year. I thought his run the other night was really really exceptional. And following on from his two previous runs, his improvement through the competition has been notable. Now, don't get me wrong; it was notable last year as well. It's scarily similar to how he ran through last year's competition. It just seemed to get better and better and better with each run. And it is worth pointing out, like, he's only beaten a length and a half in last year's final by the hottest Derby favourite of all time. And if he is a better dog this year, I agree with you. I don't think it was all cut and dry if Bucco's Diamond had stayed in it and even come back to something like last year's form. Cheap sandwiches. He's a proper greyhound. And had it not been for Bucco's Diamond, like we would be talking about him as one of the potential all-time greats. He'd be looking for a second Derby success, and he'd be, with that on top of how he's been running, he'd probably be starting a shorter than 8 to 15, because in reality, he's only 8 to 15 to start. Like if he starts, it's going to be very, very, very hard for anything to beat him, because he seems to just have the best speed into the corner. He's as good as any of them down the back, and he's staying every second. He's staying every inch of the 550-yard trip, which is something that we noticed last year through the competition. He seemed to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And while Glengar Silent did make up ground on the clock from the third bend in the semi-finals, you couldn't see him come from behind cheap sandwiches at any stage. You know what I mean? Especially given the fact that they're probably running a similar enough line. I know one's a middle and one's a wide, but I think they're both racy type dogs. They both want to be in the sort of same racing line. Let's get into the two semi-finals. We'll start with the aforementioned Chief Sandwich. We mentioned plenty about him and his display. It was really a one dog affair from very early. We knew it was going to be very tricky for the likes of Proper RS and Single on Curly on the outside of the five inside seeds. As it was, Single on Curly just didn't get going into the opening corner. He found traffic. Proper RS took a hefty shunt. Ballymac stood, as he's done so on a couple of occasions through this derby, found himself neither here nor there. He's either better off being a length further up or a length further back. And as it was, he was just in the wrong spot, and boom, his race is gone. Barefoot on Song obviously takes a hefty bump on the corner, but she turns second. She runs hard throughout. Proper RS goes third. Looks absolutely destined to be in the Derby final. And then it happened. Kevin, we've already spoken about it. Obviously, our heart goes out to Jack Kennelly and the owners of Oreo Ollie. Tommy, I know it's hard enough for you to judge. You weren't there. And the video, it's got to be said, is pretty distant. But all I can tell you is anyone in Shelbourne Park that I've spoken to, were never really in doubt. I text the man straight after the race going, he's in trouble.
Yeah, and look, I always go back to one thing about this, and I've always found actually, funnily enough, when talking to Kevin or even talking to his father about this sort of stuff. I mean, it's they have the same opinion of it as I do. When you take the lead off the dog, there's nothing you can do about it. You've done your best by that greyhound, and if the greyhound is going to do something that's against the rules of the sport, unfortunately, so be it. It's a shame, crying shame for Jack Kennelly. It doesn't show him in any less of a light because he's clearly an exceptionally talented young trainer with a really bright future. But like, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to take it on the chin. It's unfortunate it happened in the Derby semi-final, but you know what? If it's the right call, it's the right call. In we don't want a Derby final marred by an incident like that, particularly if it was further up front. But there's a knock-on effect anyway, regardless of where it happens in a race. There's a knock-on effect financially and maybe for the future, breeding prospects of greyhounds or whatever. So look, we don't really want it happening, but you know what? It does happen. They're animals at the end of the day. You do your best by them. You feed them well. You train them well. You look after them well. You put them into traps, and you hope that they'll behave. That's all you can do. I mean, it's just really unfortunate for connections. But it is what it is. We've seen it before in greyhound racing. We'll see it again in greyhound racing. They are greyhounds at the end of the day, and some of them will do that. So be it, Ian, is the best way I could say it. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? It's just animals being animals. You know what I mean? Dogs being dogs, doing what they can do. It's not. There was nothing horrifically untoward about it. You see it a million times. Dog looks in on top of another dog as if he's kind of trying to just nudge at him or whatever else. That's it. I mean, it's just a shame that it happened in Derby semi-final for connections more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's absolutely heartbreaking. There's no question about it. You
Yeah,
have to feel for connections. I particularly feel sorry for Jack Kennelly because he's been building up to this. You know what I mean? He has.
he'll be back.
He's been getting better and better and better. He's got the right dogs. He's getting there with every month. He seems to be just getting better and better and getting better stock and whatnot. And it's zero reflection on him as a trainer. There's no question about it. He did
No,
remarkably well with Orioli through the Derby. And we hope and we pray that Jack Kennelly will be back. And I think I've no doubt that he will be, Kevin. By all accounts, I wasn't over in the weigh room, but I spoke to a couple of people that were over there, and they said, "Listen, Jack said, that's fine, and he handled it, and he goes again." You know what I mean? Thankfully, Jack is a sporting background. You know what I mean? He's a good footballer. He's suffered disappointment on the sporting field before. He'll do it so again in the future, but hopefully he'll be back. And who knows? He could be a future Derby winning trainer. I certainly wouldn't. Doubt that he's capable of doing so. So we wish him well. And we wish the owners the best with Orioli. Of course, we may see him back on the track, but it was just the most. It's terrible timing. If it happens in the quarterfinals of his third round, so be it. It's one of those things.
well,
The fact that he's in the Derby final for reality about 5 minutes, in reality he was in the Derby final for about 10 seconds because the stewards' inquiry was called before they were off the track, and as I've said, it was pretty obvious to me, and I've always learned that you go with your first instinct. And my first instinct was he's in trouble, even though it's happening behind cheap sandwiches in the middle of a commentary. I'm going, that doesn't look good. And the photo finish was his final nail in the coffin, I'm afraid, because you can sort of see the back of his head rather than the side of his head, which is always a telling sign, Kevin.
Yeah, look, I didn't see the photo finish, so I don't know. Yeah, look, I echo what you've been saying. I feel desperate for Jack. Like, I've been there to be put out of a semi final of a derby, and even finishing last and not being competitive, is a disappointment. Let alone your dog doing enough to qualify, and then unfortunately not make it. Desperately unlucky for him, and like you said, I know Jack will be back. What Jack has done in a short spell of time, and we got to say this, like he's not getting like it's not like he's the owner's going out there buying the big, massive, expensive dogs every time. Like what he's doing with like obviously he's buying a nice type of dog still at the same time, but like he's absolutely maximizing every one of them. And anyone out there looking to send a dog to a young up and coming trainer, I couldn't be more complimentary of Jack and what he got out of Oriole. I watched him closely in the Lee Strand, like, and this dog has just improved, and he showed on the big night that he can put up a big run because, like, if you do take that out, like, what I think is lost in all of this is like the run that he did. Like, he's turning into the back straight side by side with proper arrest in third, a front runner, you'd be saying he's vulnerable and like he's run away from
He
proper
wasn't.
arrest.
He wasn't side by side. He was
Was
about
he?
3 lengths behind proper air
Oh,
rest.
sorry. Well, I went there with camera
Yeah.
view. Yes, so he's had to come from
Mhm.
behind proper arrest. So like Jack got him to perform on the night. Do you know what I mean? So look, the mitigating factor that I've mentioned a couple of times is like, the cheap sandwiches is 12 and a half in front of the two of them, and the hare is probably another 15 yards in front of cheap sandwiches. So, you're looking at the two dogs probably 30, 40 yards maybe behind the hare. So, like, look, I'm not going over it again. I understand the decision made. I can also understand, if Jack and the crew said that there was issues with it. I get both sides of it. I'm sure if he was mine, I know what side I'd be arguing. If I was on the other side, I know as well.
Yeah.
But look, it is what it is. We have to move past it now. We will move past it, and like I said, I know Jack will be back better than ever.
Yeah. I spoke yesterday. Obviously, Sid Hewitt and Mike Davis arrived to the Derby lunch. I met them in the lobby, at the top of the stairs in Shelbourne Park, and they sort of shook my hand and said, "We don't know how we're here, but we're here." And I said, "You're here, and you deserve to be here." You know what I mean? The dog was disqualified. He finished fourth. I want to ask you about the actual rule itself because it did seem to spark up a fair bit of debate on social media over the weekend. It's been always the rules. I've always been aware of it from the very start that if a dog is disqualified, the next dog goes through. I have no problem with the rule. I'm happy with it. I just want to get your opinion. Are you happy on it, Kevin? I think it's the best way forward. We don't want 5 dog finals.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I would be in favor of it as well. I think the part that now look, I wasn't following the social media thing. I've heard that there was a bit of social media going on. I think you were involved in it, or some people were commenting to you, but so I don't know the ins and outs or what people were arguing. Someone did say to me that the argument was that someone was making is why is there a difference? Like, if a dog is disqualified or if a dog is withdrawn, why can someone get in? Now, I'm all for getting in if there's a disqualification. We can't open that door where if a dog is withdrawn
No.
that someone gets in because then obviously you're opening the door for financial, like say if Lyons Tire.
I don't even think you need to explain it. I think we all.
Exactly. So yeah, we don't want that sort of stuff coming into it. But if a decision is made by the stewards, and their decision obviously is final. If they do come out, then I fully understand the ruling, and I don't particularly have any issue with it. And like you said, it's a better race for having six in it, like whether right or wrong. I just think that it would be. I think people would have more of an understanding had there been another dog in between Oriawali and Barefoot on Song. So let's say Proper Airs was second and Barefoot on Song and Oriawali were battling for third. And it
Yeah.
was Barefoot on Song that got back in. I don't think anyone would be up in arms about this decision. It's the fact that Proper Airs was behind the two, 3 or 4 lengths behind. Oriawali passes him, beats him fair and square. That people are like, oh well, he doesn't deserve his spot in the, well, like I that's the argument I think that people are probably looking at, and I don't think that would be an argument had there been a dog up in second. So, like, you can't really use that stick to beat proper RS with. You know what I
No,
mean?
of
It
course
would have
not.
been fine if Barefoot and Song had been in third. Everyone would be fine with it because he was behind him. So, look, how often is this going to happen? Do you know what I mean? It's not a regular occurrence, but I get it,
Thankfully.
and I do think the race is better for having six
It
in.
it did happen. It did happen in the classic semi-final a few years ago at Harold's Cross. Tommy, could you name the dog that benefited from it? No? A bitch called Glass Orchid for the legendary Pat Dalton fought in the semi-finals of
Yeah.
the Puppy Derby.
Puppy Derby,
Who
yeah.
who who won
And
the puppy?
Rutland Budgie went through
Rotten Budgie was in there.
Yeah,
and won it that year.
yeah.
Huh?
So
So Kevin was
needless
Glass,
to
dumb on
say,
that one, Tommy, wasn't he?
no
the
wonder
Glass
I'm
Orchid, I'd say Glass Orchid had a little brother in the semi final or final that year too.
Yeah.
Yes, you're probably
Uh,
asking the wrong person about supporting the rule then, aren't you?
yeah. Tommy,
But I think
anything else to
Kevin was
add?
right. Like just because proper errors wasn't affected by the incident, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go through.
Of
I
course.
mean, you can't, because then you've got to get your rules get so nuanced if you start to say, okay, well, if it was between the third and the fourth and the third came across and fought the fourth and the fourth was knocked out because of that, they say, oh yeah, it should be in, and then you go, well, proper errors wasn't affected by it. You start to get really, really messy. To be honest about it, you want 6 dogs in the final. Six dogs.
I think half the grievance for some of those involved in Orioli was the fact that the result was called. Now, the result has to be called for tote purposes and for win purposes and betting purposes, trios, forecasts, whatnot. it's not like horse racing where you're disqualified. You're dropped down the field to last or wherever.
Well,
Race can be reversed or
did
whatever.
they call a steward's inquiry
They
immediately?
did call a
Yeah.
steward's inquiry, but
Yeah,
didn't
well then
call
you're
the result
fine.
of the
Once the
steward's
steward's
inquiry.
inquiry is called before the result is called fully.
Uh,
Yeah.
just also, I'm going to open a pure can of worms here, but just to say it like that doesn't come back in hindsight, where the rule will become not complicated, where I'll feel the rule um justice won't be necessarily served is God forbid if Oreo, and I'm not even going to use Oreo Wally, but had a dog battling for third, taking another dog off the last bend that was in a qualifying position and almost brought him to a stop, and then the other two dogs behind come past. The dog that finishes fourth will go through, and the dog that was actually interfered with won't. And like that's not a situation we're dealing with now, but that is probably a grey area. And I don't know what the answer is. Thank God,
It's
I don't
not
have to
great.
deal.
The dog interfered
No,
with
I
just
don't think
simply
so.
won't go through. You
No,
know,
it's not.
Exactly.
no,
It's not
won't
grey. It's
accept it.
just greyhound. It's just greyhound racing. It's
Yeah,
not
Just
grey.
greyhound
that's
racing.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we'll move on from that. What it's funny, it actually never really dawned on me that while all this was happening, the bitch that Orioli did fight was obviously Barefoot on Song. I get the impression the way you've spoken about her, Kevin, she's not one to be too concerned about it. I'd say she's
No.
shaken it off. It wasn't a bother on her.
Yeah, no, no, no. Look, she was. This one is just a bundle of energy. Like we had to take her away from the pups at 6 weeks old, not because she was a bad mother, but she'd stand on him. She's just so excitable. The pups were a month old, and you could have brought her to the gallop. That's just the way she is. Like she's all go all the time, and now on Sunday, probably the first time I say ever, like she knew she'd a race, but that was more so that two or three times they tried to get up on her around the first bend, and I was just praying she'd stay up because like she was getting clipped from behind Oreo Wally and proper arrest. She was just about around the bend, and
She's
she
lucky. She's lucky. She's 68 and not 58. You know
yeah,
what I
no,
mean?
and she's all of the 68 too. Like you won't move her too handy. But no, and she bounced out there yesterday, and she was up to gallop yesterday. So like she's A1, like but like you can't get enough work into her. She just is. She's a wonderful bitch. She really is. We've obviously had problems with her season. You know, we bought her in season. She went to Newbridge, got to the final of the unraced, was in season in the final. Came back, went to Waterford, won the Waterford Oaks in season in the final again. And we covered her then trying to throw nature off its course. And, you know, like I think their pups are 12 months old in 2 weeks' time. So she's coming on a year old with the pups. And like she's come back again. And, you know, she got to the Easter Cup final. She won the Limerick Oaks. She was second in the Select Stakes behind Seven Beach. And everywhere you point her in a direction, like she just always raised her game. And I'm not saying she'll win, but I just have a feeling she'll be involved. And I know that might sound mental, like she's 50-1. And just to touch on what Tommy said about the draw, like with very little the draw could be done. And we'll probably come to the final later. I'll give you my theory on that later. Actually, I'll keep that back for a little bit later. But just on Ansong, yeah, no, she's really really well, and like a 50-1, no one's expecting her to have any chance. But she won't shirk from the issue, and I guarantee you that.
Yeah. Obviously, Proper Air Race was promoted Tommy into the final, finished fourth. Has to be said, did run a bit flat. Now,
Man, stink.
he did take a hefty enough bump on the opening corner, but he's clear third into the back straight. And like for all that Oreo Ollie is going after one in front, he shouldn't still be passing the likes of a Proper Air Race. Now, a week is a long time in greyhound racing, and he's a dog I've really struggled to get to grips with since he's come to Ireland. Obviously, enough like we've seen what he's capable of, but there's other times where you're going, that's not what he needs to be doing, to be a Derby contender. And yet, he's probably going to go off. In fact, I have no doubt he'll go off second favourite in the Derby. Now, he wouldn't be for me, certainly after his latest display.
No, well, just on Barefoot Song, one line. She's just a brilliant advertisement for greyhounds in that they want to race, they want to be out there running. I mean, she has a litter of pups, and she just loves being out there. And look at what she do week in, week out. Proper Heiress ran terribly. I mean, to be honest about it, there's no two ways of hiding it. You can pretend what you like and say, oh, look at this and that, and we got a bit of a bump. Like it turned in third place about 3/4 of a length. I'd gone out the second round, I think about 3/4 of a length down on the second place runner. And not only did not go into second place at any stage, got well beaten, and another 20 yards, and it's probably last. That concerns me going into the final. And to be honest about it, because I the way I look at races and I think about it in form wise, I'm trying to figure out what will win it. I don't factor proper errors into the final whatsoever. Allied to the fact that Magic and Magazine 2 is going to almost certainly going to out trap him. But the concern I'd have is that, like, how can you bounce back? If somebody said to me that maybe it was trap five, no, it wasn't trap five. Do you know what I mean? It's I'm like you, Ian. I've struggled because I like the dog and I wanted the dog in the final. I wanted the dog in the final, not through the circumstances that did happen, but I wanted the dog in the final because I think it's important for a UK raider to get to a decider and maybe encourage more runners to come over again. So, look, I'm glad Proper Airs is in there, not the circumstances, but I'm just disappointed with the run the last day. And I think the funniest thing about it is, even though I have to dismiss the dog as a potential Derby winner, I have to because of that run the other night. I just can't see how it can change in a week as much, and with the draw against it. But also, while I do that, I know it beat Cheap Sandwiches fair and square in the Derby already. Yeah. That's like, you're kind of going, well, if that dog turns up, that dog's got a proper chance of winning the Derby. And if your connections of Proper Airs, you're thinking, you know what, we've proven we can beat the odds-on favourite here, and we did it fair and square, and there was nobody came away thinking there was excuses for either of them, for anything in the race. So I'm of the opinion that even though I know it's written down there in form, in cold black and white, it's written down there the Proper Airs can beat Cheap Sandwiches, I can't have it whatsoever on that run the other night.
You have to be in a situation where you have to believe your eyes at times and go, right, why did he run so badly? I don't know. Like, he just never really got going. And the fact of the matter is, it's very hard to go back onto his side until you've seen him run again, and by which time it'll be too late. He's running on Saturday night. You have to make a decision now. And on the latest evidence, like, he's 4-1, 9-2. I'm not sure I'd back him at 10.
I wouldn't.
I'm not sure.
I wouldn't, Ian. And I tell you, I just, if you're going in there thinking, I can back Proper Airs, you're taking a lot on trust, a lot on faith, and I just can't. These aren't machines. These are greyhounds they're having their sixth run in the Derby. I mean, we talked about it before. Proper Airs had plenty of running in England, and loads of experience, plenty of running, and just thought that maybe it might catch up. I felt that's what it was the other night. That it was just catching up with the dog. He's been, like, it's terrific to get to a Derby final, and I wish him luck. If he wins it, fair play. If he wins it, I take it on the chin as one of those things. But as somebody who tries to deal strictly with form, I just can't have it. I just can't have it.
Yeah, Kevin. The one thing I will say about Proper Airs is he's an habitual winner, okay? But this is the first time, I'd be absolutely guaranteed certain, it's the first time he's ever run in anything more than, I'm not even sure he's been in a 4-run competition, because most of the races he's been winning in England would be all 3-run competitions. 6 runs around Shelbourne Park, 550 yards, and the company he's keeping is tough. Is there a chance? Like, obviously there is a chance he bounces back and shows his very best, but it would have to be a concern that his 5th run in this competition, he produced arguably his worst display.
Yeah, look, I'm going to lean on you now a little bit here, because, like I've said a couple of times, I'm obviously aware of what he's won in the UK. I just don't follow the UK as closely as you do. So when he's running in the UK, is he a dog that turns second or third and you're like, yeah, he still wins? Like, does he come from behind often in the UK, or is he just in front most nights at the first bend and that's how he wins?
Listen, in his most recent big race success in the UK was in the Sussex Cup in Hove, which is a very much like
a
lovely Shelbourne Park type track. You know what I mean? Proper galloping track. And he basically led off the opening bend in each of the 3 rounds.
Okay.
Was probably just marginally headed to the opening corner, but led sort of off the opening corner, or led before the second bend. And most of his winning in the UK has been that way. Whereas he may not be in front on the corner, but he more often than not is in front by the second bend. He does run, as we've seen against Check for Cash, shall we say, he does run a very, very determined opening corner. That's the one thing he will do. He will not shirk the issue from the inside draw. If there's a dog that has to be pushed out of the way, he'll get in there and he'll stick his shoulder out. But as a result, he's probably not taking on the same strength and depth in the UK as he would be in Ireland, and he does find himself in front more often than not.
Yeah, so well, if that is the case, if he is used to dominating from the front, look, it's one of two things, and I'm not saying he ran well on Saturday night. Like, look, I'm sure connections would feel the same, and of course he ran a bit flat. There's one of two things. It is for me either, like you said, it's a 6 week competition, and look, like they're not robots, they're not machines, and I've seen it up close and personal, on many occasion, and it can flip like that. Like you can
Hmm.
think quarterfinal like Jeannie Mac, no injuries, been bouncing all week, and just it can just go like that. It can happen so fast where you're already behind the 8 ball, they're stiff, they're sore. You can tell going even in and out of the paddock. So it is tough, and certain dogs are up to it. So it could be a constitution thing, and maybe he is getting a bit tired or fatigued. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know. I just feel he's a front runner. I think when he's on the bunny, he's just different. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm delusional. I don't know. But from what I've seen of him, even in the UK, a little bit I saw him like in the juvenile, like he beat Bocco's Diamond fair and square. Now maybe Bocco's wasn't ready, but again, he popped out, made all. I thought I was really disappointed with him in the first round of the Derby, and I thought he ran similar. Like I know he got checked off once, twice off the second bend, but like it was similar to the run the other night. Like he's in a position, and I know he gets checked up that night, but he never really looked like he was going to battle back into a position. That was going back to the English Derby,
Hmm.
and that reminded me a bit of what I done last week. And I just have a feeling this sort of brings me to the point I was making earlier about the draw, right? I know I've gone on the record. I don't think Proper S, from a trapping point of view, wants to be in one. But I think if I had Proper S, the only trap that he can win the Derby from is one. And it
Yeah.
comes back to the point that you made about check for cash. For Proper S to win the Derby, he has to lead on the corner. So if I had him, I know the only chance I have is winning the Derby. The only place he can take that lead is, and the same goes for Mag and on song or whatever, is from that inside pitch, having the rail on your shoulder, because there are three good starters. Like one of them might miss it. It's highly unlikely two of them do. So for Proper S to get his nose around the first bend in front, I think he has to be in there. Now, whether he'll break from in there or not, I'm not saying he will. But for him to win the Derby, he needs to do a 3:37 and he
Yeah.
needs to be stuck to the rail.
If
Has
if you
the
look at his record, it would greatly back up what you're saying.
Yeah,
That
and
he's a
uh,
very different greyhound on the bunny.
that's the point. I see. I don't know what he's like in the UK, but to me, just the limited races, and I'm not knocking the dog, because I want to make this crystal clear. The amount of dogs that are similar to that is
Hmm.
unbelievable, and it's not just open class dogs. I'm talking graded dogs. We've dogs at home in A4. If they're on the bunny, they'll win every A4. But if they're led, they look like an A7 dog. So
Yeah.
it's not. This isn't an isolated thing for him. I'm not knocking him, but I don't know him as much as everybody else in the UK and whatever study and the Irish people have studied him. But to me, he screams like a front runner, and I think on the bunny he would be a different dog. And if I had cheap sandwiches, I think if Magical Mag leads me on the corner, we'll take her. Barefoot on Song leads on the corner, we'll take her. It's highly unlikely Glengar Silent and Deploy lead on the corner. But Proper S is the other one. And of the three inside ones, if I had cheap sandwiches, if I had Deploy, if I had Glengar Silent, the one of the three that I don't want leading me on the corner is Proper S. I mean, and
The,
and
the evidence is there. September
and
6th, obviously the
yeah,
third.
Yeah, well, look, the thing with that is that like Proper Eris, unfortunately, if Proper Eris is going to lead around, right? Kevin said maybe a 3:37, and he's right because, but I can't see that happening, right? I
yeah.
can't see it outbreaking the two and three, right? The two bitches. I just can't see it happening. So unfortunately, what's going to happen is he's going to have to burst through along the inside at the bend and cause a bit of trouble probably because I don't know that he has the early pace to get by Magic and Mag and Barefoot and Song going into the bend if he gives them half a length or a length out of traps
Oh
around.
no,
He's not going
Tommy,
there.
if he doesn't do a 3:36,
He's
and
he's gone.
I'm
He's
saying, so that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
It's like if he was in three, I don't think there's any way he can lead the two bitches. I think from one, and it's a big if. I don't think he traps as good from one, but
Yeah.
it's possible. Like he has done a 3:38, like, but he needs to do that for him to win the Derby. I know connections might have been thinking going into it, I don't want trap one. He's not as good out of it. But the more I look at the race, I think if I had him, the only way he wins the Derby is actually from one, and he
I
has to do a 3:30. I'm not saying he will, but that's his best
no,
chance.
I 100% agree with it. But like I don't want to back him at 4-1 to do a 3:30 something
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
there's no evidence there to say he'll do it. And particularly in a deeper race, the night he did it when he led Cheap Sandwiches, was a 5-dog race and he got a lead. And I know he had to show pace. He went to inside check for cash, but he showed lovely pace into the bend. But I'm not sure that he's going to get away with it in Derby final. I'm not. I won't be surprised at all if he doesn't go off second favourite. I just don't fancy him. If he wins it, you say well done and come back again next year. With whatever greyhound you want to come back with, because it's better competition for it. But from a punting point of view, I can't entertain the dog.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. That's the beauty of the game. It's built in opinions, and if he misses the kick, it's game over, ball burst. That's all we know. That's the 3 going through from the opening semi-final. Of course, those that didn't qualify, obviously the aforementioned Oriole, Single on Curly, and Ballymac Stud. And I'm absolutely certain when the Derby betting goes up for 2026 that they will be amongst the top 10, 12 in the betting. Certainly Ballymac Stud will be right up, very close to the very top.
He needs to
needs to sharpen up.
There's a lot of polish. There's a lot of polish required yet.
Yeah. We'll move on to the second heat. Just getting back to it there, Kevin, Tommy. You may remember a famous name from the past, Manorville Magic. Manorville Magic finished second in the 1989 Derby and came back a year later to win it. Russian Gun actually won a Derby, came back the following year to finish second in it. So,
and did you find out if a bitch has ever had a litter of pups and got to one?
I actually don't even know if there's any way of finding that out, to be honest. Who's to say?
You were meant to be the encyclopedia. Not what they all say about you.
Yeah. Well, there's only been 10 female winners, so I can't imagine. I know Susie Sapphire didn't have a litter of pups by then. Oh. She certainly has a litter of pups or two now.
Yeah.
She's thrown about 80 in every litter. I can see there's hundreds of them knocking around. They can all run. We might get to her
fairly short springtime litter.
Yeah. No. On to the second semi-final of the BOYLE Sports Irish Greyhound Derby. And this, by the standards of the opener, was relatively straightforward. Magical Mag flashed out of boxes. No surprise to anybody. But Glengar Silent showed a little bit more speed from boxes than he had been doing. He turned second, just avoiding Happy Jet on the opening corner. And that was crucial because Happy Jet stuck straight right into the on the opening corner. But Glengar Silent at 340 as opposed to his best previous 350, and it made all the difference. He had a target on the back of Magical Mag from early in the back straight, took her into the third bend, went on to score. Droopy's Deploy ran on really strongly, as has been his way in recent times, to finish 2 lengths second, and Magical Mag back in third. It was all very straightforward, really, Tommy, once they sort of got around the corner in the order they did.
Yeah, entirely predictable race. I think it's exactly how we called it last week. Magic Mag would lead. Glengar Silent would turn. I thought it might turn second. It did. And it was all over from there. Droopy's Deploy had the makings. We called him out about 3 weeks ago that he could be a Derby finalist. He even hadn't been running to the best of his ability, but he was back damn close with the other night. The clock tells us that. The outside of track has been running well for the last few weeks as well, funnily enough. I think he ran a great race to get second, but it was let's be cold about it. Glengar Silent is an improving dog and was able to put himself in a position. He was lucky that the Happy Out dog didn't run a brilliant first bend. I'd have to watch it again, Ian. I didn't think they went hard right. I thought he half eased into the bend a little bit, just kind of, there was a bit of there was traffic in front of him and just kind of seemed to try to sidestep it maybe more than anything else, and that allowed Glengar Silent to get around. Even though Glengar Silent did a decent section to the bend, I'm not sure that he was doing a huge section into the first bend, which is where Cheap Sandwiches will win or lose the Derby on Saturday night. I think that's where he probably needs to step up again, but he's exceptionally fast. It was a lovely run. He ran a little bit stronger than I thought. I still think, and I might be wrong, I still think Glengar Silent's pace is from 2 to 4. I don't think it's necessarily home. I don't think it's necessarily the final 25 yards, and it's certainly not.
I think we can all agree with that. Like, he's not stopping at the home straight. He's not stopping. He's relentless, but he's not making up by catching ground up the home straight on dogs in front of him. If he's not in front by the last bend, it's going to need something special to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the way the race panned out, right? With the three of them kind of Droopy's Deploy got a little bit of trouble and kind of showed a lot of pace, but like Magical Mag was just vulnerable, and I think this is really harsh, but this is what's written on her form. I kind of said last week that I thought maybe her limitations were exposed in the quarterfinals because the run she got, and that I thought a couple of dogs showed pace up against her and that sort of stuff, and she had done a very good clock, but I think the clock the other night that she actually recorded was pretty similar, was it, to the previous week? There wouldn't be much in it anyway.
She was doing 29:47. It's basically, it's 5 spots off her best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So I mean, she's running to her best, I think, and
yeah,
and
yeah.
like the makeup of the race was absolutely beautiful. You had two what I wouldn't call flying starters in one and two. She was able to lead. It looked predictable that she would lead. She did. Love the fact that she's so reliable at traps. If you could bottle that and sell it, you'd be a billionaire. Never mind a millionaire. Um, and she did it, but it set the race up beautifully for Dengar Silent, and that's why I said before the semi-finals that her qualifying would be important to Cheap Sandwiches. And now with the draw for the final, it's hugely important to Cheap Sandwiches that Magical Mag is in the final. So look at if she goes and wins it, brilliant. Because she has been one of the stars of it. But I just think I feel she needs to probably find 20 spots to go on and win the derby. Druby's deploy. How is he going to position himself to win a derby? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to fancy him in many ways unless he rockets out of traps, which you don't expect is going to happen. But you just come away from that heat thinking, look, even though things are really going to have to go right for him in the final, Glengar Silence is the one to take out that semi-final, no doubt. And funnily enough, if you ran that race the other night, if you run the final 10 times, he'll win it a couple of them probably, or maybe one, he'll win one of them. But he just needs to find that bit extra into the bend, and then we'll have a race on.
Yeah, it is coming. There's no question. It was much more
Yeah.
encouraging the way he went to the open corner. It was
Yeah.
only his 10th start. Like, it's remarkable. He's only had the 5 starts prior to his Derby campaign. Kevin, he's certainly one you'd like to have in your kennel. He's an awfully
Mm.
fast greyhound. He's a huge engine. Magical Mag. Like, as we keep saying, you can set your watch by her, and like, that's not necessarily what you want now, because as Tommy said, she probably does need to find 3 links. It's huge. Like, we saw that she entered the back straight with a not a comfortable enough lead because it was Glengar Silent behind her, but like, he took 2.5 lengths off her pretty handy. And there are other dogs in the derby like Droopy's Deploy, whereas I said in commentary Glengar Silent roars into the third bend. Droopy's Deploy was moving every bit as fast, if not faster, into the third bend because he was making up ground in behind them as well. So she is going to be vulnerable down the back straight. But if you're a backer of Magical Mag, or if you're indeed Pat Guilfoyle, or one of the Guilfoyle family, you know your route to success, and it starts at boxes. Get that length on them, and you never know what might happen. It only takes one little nuzzle from proper ARS, let's say, on the opening corner, and all of a sudden there's a scattering, and Magical Mag could be 4 clear into the back straight, and then try and pick her up doing 29:40. It ain't easy.
No, and derbies are one from the front. I agree with Tommy. Like her overall time, like I'm not expecting her to do a 29:15 or a 29:20. I fully expect her to, for her route to win the derby. I think it does come with the clock coming up at 29:40. I don't think it's her coming down to a 29:20, but her doing 29:40 could very easily win this derby because, in my opinion, there's only really one other dog in this race who would need to miss the break for her not to be clear at the corner and potentially carnage at the opening bend. Like none of us want that to happen. But if Cheap Sandwiches did miss the break and do a 3:48 or like you're not even looking for him to do a 3:60. If he done a 3:48, well, and Mag done a 3:33, like which she is capable of doing, like an absolute rocket out of the boxes, and the others all start well, Cheap Sandwich is the only one that'll roar into the corner to clear all the traffic. The rest of them could easily land at the bend together. And we've seen what proper RS will do at the opening bend on the railing. He will use his size to his advantage, and it could be Skittles in behind him. So there is a route to victory for Mag.
Yeah.
Again, I like I said with proper RS, is it the most likely route to victory? Obviously not, but she's 10 to 1 for a reason. But she's been brilliant. On her own, I think she's captivated an audience, because I've obviously listened to yourself and Ryan's videos on YouTube, and like people like Ryan who mightn't have known all the depth of the dogs coming into it have just gravitated towards her because she's been so bomb-proof. She's won so many rounds, and every night anyone that's backed her, you've got to run for your money. Like she's led probably every round of the Derby.
You grow a loyal to these dogs because you know exactly what they're going to do, and
Correct.
we
Yeah.
know exactly what she's going to do.
Yeah.
She's gonna win from traps,
And
and it's just a case of if things go right around her, she's a big life.
Yeah, and Ballyann Sim comes to mind. You know what I mean? Like he would have been probably fancy prices in the Derby, an inside draw, early pace, or the people probably would have been saying, for him to win, he probably needs to take a flyer, but something will come from behind him. Derby final night, whatever leads generally wins. Like it just happens. It just happens. If you get around that first bend in front, track will be good. it's hard to pass. So she's there on merit. Glengar Silent, look, I think even with proper arrest at his best, I think you could. There's a case to be made for him being as fast as anything in this final, like being potentially the fastest dog in the race. I don't think he's only had 10 races. We haven't seen him put all the pieces together just yet, but he's flashed everywhere. Like last week, he showed a bit more early pace. We've seen Tommy's right. What he does from 2 to 4 is frightening. It was that way in the unraced. I really thought he was divisive early in the unraced, but it was just clearly an experience. The issue I have with him, like I said, I've given you my opinion on how Proper S can do it. I've given you my opinion on how Magan and Song can do it. The one dog I'm struggling with is him because I just don't see how he gets to the second bend without a bit of a bump. Do you know what I mean? Like even like he done a 340 last week, and like Tommy said, from the bend, from the winning line into the bend, like he's not going to be like what Cheap Sandwich is doing, roaring clear. And to win a derby, I was talking to Tom yesterday, like you have to be first or second after second bend, him included. Like turning fourth, he won't win this derby. I don't mind what the three in front of him are. You won't pick up unless there's obviously trouble at the third bend, but you have to be first or second. You have to be in the firing line. And for him to put himself in a position to be in that firing line is going to be hard because, like, what's the likelihood of Mag on song and Proper S all being behind him at the opening bend? That's the part I just struggle with slightly. Maybe on song goes in, steps left
It's
and
going to need something like a pincer movement, but they all know their game so well that you
exactly.
can't see them not keeping their line as they have always done.
Yeah, but I don't want to get it twisted. I do think that if again if you had cheap sandwiches, Glengar Silent is and obviously Deploy as well, but they're not the one you want turning on. Like it'll be some race if cheap sandwiches and Glengar Silent are nip and tuck off the second bend. It'd be an unbelievable race. I just don't know how it happens from for Glengar Silent's
Yeah.
point of view. I'd love to see it, but I'm just struggling to see how he puts himself in that position after second bend.
Droopy's Ploy was third. I'll put my hands up here and admit that I've already had a nibble in this fellow in the final, betting without. I, I can see traffic on the inside. I think it's very possible he's going to be absolutely hammering home. Just seems to be happy in himself, running very, very strongly. I just thought, 8-1 without the favourite was more than generous. I'm very, very tempted. I haven't put pen to paper yet. I'm very tempted to tip him to be second. Just the way the race could pan out. He ran another remarkable race here in defeat.
He did it I said to you before the start we were discussing it, so you know my thoughts. I'm with you. I think look, I obviously won't be betting. Obviously, I have my own lady in it, but even if it wasn't, I still don't generally bet. But if it was, he would be one that I would be betting to be in the frame. I don't know the clock he did last week, but you can like it's going to be the same. It's
He
not
does
going to be any
29.40.
slower.
He does 29.40.
That's what I mean, and it's hard to see how it's going to be any slower because even if there's trouble at the bend, like he stays by far the widest. Like on song is a railer, proper S railer, mag a railer. Like cheap sandwiches will go up and come in, but like he won't. Now he won't go as wide as some really wide runners do, but he will definitely stay clear of the trouble. It's hard to see him losing momentum at any point in the race. So I do think I would expect his winning or his resulting time to be somewhere between 29:40, 29:55, and I think it'll be in the first three. So I definitely see a case for him to be thereabouts. But again, from the win point of view, I think derbies are one from the front. I just think something might get loose on him, and if something gets loose without trouble, it'll be hard for him on a fast track to pick up the leader. But making the frame, I'd make a strong case for him. I think he'll definitely be in the top three.
Yeah, Tommy. What's any further thoughts on that heat?
Well, funny thing about Truby's deploy is everybody seems to think he finished third or he finished second the other night.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah.
Barry called the defence the other night. Truby's deploy finished third. Everybody seemed to stop watching for the last 25 yards for some reason. He absolutely rocketed at home. I said last week I backed him in the quarterfinals without the favourite. I think he was about 5 or 6 to 1. I'm not sure what. And I got away with murder. But I was kind of hoping that the dog that turned up in the semi-final was the dog that would have turned up in the quarterfinal. He mightn't even have finished second. He might have won the heat. But he definitely stepped forward. And I can see the case. Unfortunately, and this is where you hate to think about this type of thing. And if you're going to back it based on it, you're going to have to get a decent price. But I think his finishing second depends on a bit of trouble inside. which is
Mhm.
not what we that's the
But it
reality.
doesn't. It
We
doesn't.
a
But
bit of
it. But
bumping,
it.
a bit of
It
bumping
doesn't
is no
have to
harm.
be. It doesn't have to be massive trouble. It just has to be. Just has to be like competitive racing, just enough to halt the sort of the progress of
Yeah,
a
yeah,
couple.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, you're right, but it's I one thing I'm interested in, and I'm sorry to say I don't know the answer, which I really should. Um, if Chief Sandwiches leads, right, and just say in theory Glengar Silent turns second, would Glengar Silent go inside Cheap Sandwiches for definite, for 100% definite, or would he go to move around him if he's a length and a half behind him down the back?
Uh, I don't know. I'll be honest. I
I
don't
just, I
know.
just, I'm just
I would say he'd glance in, but I don't think he'd have enough to take a length and a half off Cheap Sandwiches
yeah,
down the back straight. And
but
into the
this,
third bend, he may well have to chicken out of it because we know Cheap Sandwiches is going to drive it.
this is where my concern with Lingard style is that where and how he'll make his challenge if it's cheap sandwiches in front. Now look, if cheap sandwiches is a length and a half in front at any stage, the race is probably over anyway. Let's be honest
Mhm.
about it. But I'm just thinking because Glengar Silent has that type of pace that we were saying from 2 to 4. Um, well, that said, like if you watch the Dundalk International, if you watch even the English Derby when Cheap Challenges did loads of things wrong, showed phenomenal mid race pace, having missed it. And again, I talk about how I can't understand he didn't finish second, and I left. I was the following day before I realised they finished fourth. Um, he's probably going to win because he has that mid race pace too. So I mean, I'm like Kevin. It's difficult. It's difficult to position Glengar Silent in the race at the first bend, logically position him where you think he can win from.
Yeah.
And that's that like without something like Kevin made a great point there earlier on about he was trying to imagine the race if just one dog missed the kick, and that was one dog obviously being cheap sandwiches. Completely different race. Yes,
Mhm.
I know I've said Magic and Mag. I think we've had limitations exposed to around about the 29:40. You think on a fast track in Derby finalised, you can probably stretch it out to maybe 29:33 or four. You know,
We're after losing him briefly there. Hopefully he'll come back to us now in a moment. Kevin, I, I know you're working for BOYLE Sports, and I know I'm very friendly with Damo. I find it's a race that is probably priced how they think it should be priced rather than how they should be priced. Does that make sense? In a sense where I don't think it's quite as spread out in terms of the betting as it should be, or I don't think it's. I think it's probably too spread in a sense where I think the two second and third choices in the market are probably too tight compared to, as you say, your own bitch. But more importantly, probably Droopy's deploy. I have Droopy's deploy. Put him on the card considerably shorter than the 25 to 1. He's available at the moment.
Look, I love the pricing now to you. It wouldn't be my area of expertise by any means, but look, it's a tough one. It's a real. I've been thinking about obviously being a Derby final a lot, and I do think it comes down to what cheap sandwiches does. Do you know what I mean? I was certain we wouldn't have a shorter price favourite as we had last year. Obviously it's unlikely he'll go off what. Well, he won't go off as short as Bocco's Diamond was, but he's obviously going off a very very short price favourite, so it's not anything groundbreaking to say that he is the key to the race. If he does his sub 340 and goes up on the shoulder of Mag or on Song or whatever, one of the early pacers, I think he will win. He just has that superior pace. Like I know what Tommy's saying, like where would Glengar Silent go if he's going by him and
There's no go by him. That's the
I
issue.
just don't think he will go by him. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
he'd have to be up his inside nearly at that point to beat him. I think he'd have to be inside him before nearly the second bend and try and hold that position into the third bend, which we saw proper RS do. I think to beat him, that's what something has to do. I think something has to be up his inside by the second bend and hold him going around the last two bends to beat him. That's the only scenario in my head where cheap sandwiches doesn't win. And I think for that to happen, he needs to leave a length of the boxes. Like if his sectional is 340 or below, I think he wins the Derby. Now if it's not, I think you can make a case for it. Like you said, I know what you're coming at. You're coming at the proper S is too short, and that maybe the likes
I,
of
I, I just feel that it probably should be more contracted amongst the remainder. You
But
know,
I just
I feel it's been priced on how they think it should be priced rather than how it should be priced. Because, proper ARS and Glengar Silent, it's actually harder. Like, it's nearly harder to make a case for them than it is Magical Mag, who's over double their price.
yeah, no, and like if you took out the each way point, if you took each way betting out of it, and I just had to bet win only, I would nearly. It's going to sound bizarre because I think Glengar Simon's a faster dog right now than Proper Rex. I think he's a better dog. I think he's more gears. I think he's more scope. I think he's more everything. But I actually do think it's harder to find him in a position off the second bend than it is for the other dog. The other dog, I know
Yeah,
what he has to
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
He has to do 335.
That's a fully understand that. Absolutely fully
That
understand that.
so,
Yeah.
so that's where I do look. If the proper ARS that turns up last week turns up Saturday night, I agree with Tommy. No chance, can't win it, and I do. But I do remember the night that he did, and the key to beating cheap sandwiches is exactly what
Yeah.
proper ARS did that night. Get up his inside at the first bend, hold him on the second bend, and hold him to the third bend. And I think there's probably only him that can do it inside him. I don't see Glengar Silent getting up cheap sandwiches inside and leading the inside trio. If there was only one inside him, maybe, but like he's relying on three of them, clearing them into the corner. So, and deploy on deploy, I think deploy, if it was betting, if the each way part wasn't available for win only, I think he should be one of the outsiders because I just don't see dogs that turn third, fourth winning derbies. I think they're one from first or second off the second bend. And it's where I look. You're talking to a delusional connection here. Like this is I have a 50 to 1 shot in it, and I'm trying to convince myself that we can win it. And like I said on Saturday night, I gave us no chance. Just happy to be there. But by Monday afternoon, I was started coming around to it, and like I need on song to do 330, 334. And Mag to miss it slightly. Not proper rest. I think if Our Lady does a 333, 334, I think she could. And if Mag, who we all said the same thing, you can set your clock by her. I'm asking for something that hasn't happened in the Derby so far to happen. And then she's 50 to 1. It's highly unlikely it will happen. But that's what I need her to do. To give herself any sort of chance, that's what has to happen. So from the win point, I do think proper rest, like there's he is he likely to do it? No. But if and it's a big word, it's only 2 letters, but if he does, I think there's a case for him to be made. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was just saying, Tommy, that I thought the pricing was just a little off, shall we say. I just felt it probably should be a bit more contracted, with the likes of.
Yeah, yeah, it's never off. It's never off. If it's just one opinion against another.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can take advantage of that if you think you're right and try to take advantage of it. I think the beauty of the final is that Droopy's deploy goes up as straight as a gun barrel. And that is vitally important. He is like a gun barrel to the first bend. There's no veering left, right, nothing. He just pops out of traps and goes straight as a die. And then I think that's what will set up Chief Sam just to get his run. Glengar Silent, I'm struggling to find out where he'd go. Barefoot on song. Can she lead Magical Mag? I'm not certain about that either. It's just and proper Eris, I'm sorry. If proper Eris wins it, I take it on the chin, well done, and move along. But I don't think it'll be a satisfactory for me after the semi-final performance. I just can't, on form as a form student, I can't back it. I just can't back it. So I think everything points to things going right. Some people say I prefer cheap sandwiches in sixth. I don't mind it. Now we did talk about something earlier on too that's kind of important. I think we talked about Derby at 29.50 something.
Say
No,
again,
I think
Tommy,
there's
we just missed,
probably mitigating circumstances because
we just missed the start of that sentence. Go say it again there.
I was just saying, sorry, I was just saying that I think last year's Derby final was that one in 29.50 something.
Yeah, it was wicked rain. It was wicked
Yeah, it
rain
was
and
just
weather.
But not only wicked rain, I think part of the circumstances involved there were obviously Bacchus Diamond didn't do things right on the night and still happened to win. But I think actually, do you know what? It was such a stacked final. It was such a
No,
deep final.
he won in 29-25.
You had who was in four? Who was in four in the final? You
Lucky
had proper,
Julie.
you had proper dogs all the way through. Like you had a really tight final where you could near only for the Bacchus Diamond look exception. You could make a case for probably anything else in the final. It was a really good final. Sometimes that's why a final might be a little bit slower. I don't think that'll be the case on Saturday night. I think it's set, even though the draw has made it quite interesting. I think Cheap Sandwiches is going to have to do things wrong not to win, and hopefully he will do it right. I know Kevin, my best fucking song, and she's been terrific, but like to be honest about it, I mean, I think things have to go slightly different than they have done all the way through the derby for Cheap Sandwiches not to oblige.
Yeah, yeah. I think most people would agree with you. That's why he's 8 to 15. I think we've spoken enough about the derby. We're looking forward to it, Kevin. Obviously, it's going to be a great occasion, big crowd. Obviously, accommodation prices aren't the May West. We may not have the same level of support from the UK, although from what I hear, there are going to be UK runners on the night. We've had a few entries, so touch wood, it'll be a great card. We have the NFL to take on, the Ryder Cup to take on, and obviously Listowel to take on. So three very popular occasions in Irish sport as well as world sport to rival. So hopefully it'll be a huge crowd once again. You'd expect it'll be a full house, and we're looking forward to it.
Ah, it is. It's look, it's a year that like I suppose I get asked to do a bit more outside my job for BOYLE Sports, like but like it's not working at all. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like to be asking you like, oh, can you go? Of course I can. Do you know what I mean? Like you'd love to be there. I wouldn't change it for the world. And look, obviously Shelbourne Park having the facelift it's got, and fair play to yourself obviously on this call, Don who's in the background, and Orla and everybody up there, like the from a social media point of view, pumping out the content. And like this is the time of year we get to sing and show off our sport and at the best. And look, we've been talking about the final there, and what if this happens, and look, that's it. Everyone has an opinion, and who knows what's going to happen. That's the beauty of it. Derby final, strange things happen, and I just can't wait for it. And the card will be the best dogs in Ireland and hopefully in the UK coming over to do battle. There's going to be so much more than just the final of the Derby happening. Like, there's some of the best. I know you love the 600, so do I. The 575 and 550s. There's going to be racing there that will be unrivaled throughout the rest of the year. Like, it's going to be a night's racing where you'll have the top dogs taking on each other, and I can't wait for them. I'm really excited, not just because of obviously On Song being there, but just from a Greyhound enthusiast point of view. I can't wait to be there and meeting everybody and enjoying the night. So anyone that's in two minds, I'd encourage them to come along. And like you said, it'll be packed out, and the roar will go up, and we'll all get goosebumps. And come 9:30 or whatever time it'll be, we'll get to celebrate and congratulate a worthy winner, because they'll have done some running to win this derby.
Yeah, no question about it. Great card to look forward to, I assume. It'll be due up. It's up as you're watching this. We haven't quite seen it yet, it hasn't come, but I've been told that there's some cracking entries, and we're looking forward to it. Of course, the Derby plate is on the card, Tommy, and I'll be very keen to see what Magical Major can do. I know I've been beating this drum for a few weeks at this stage. I thought his run in the semi-finals was absolutely remarkable. He finds himself 12 behind. He's beaten three parts in a short head. It was unbelievable. The engine this fella has, when he does put it together at boxes, he's going to do an absolutely monstrous run. You're muted again, Tommy. No, we can't hear Tommy. That's a shame. Go ahead, Kevin.
Ah, yeah, no, look, it was hard to believe what he's done. And when you think it, it's Ballymac Axel, a strong running dog, who's in front of him. Like, I was standing beside Robert Gleeson and went across the line. He goes, "There's no way." He said Major could have got up for third there. Obviously, Robert with one eye on the final with Carrick
Yeah.
Scholesy, but he's something else. And and in fairness to Pat, I was talking to Pat early on. Obviously, we bought colours of green now, who's a lovely pup in his own right. And it must have been so exciting for Pat bringing the three of them to the track, starting them off. And I know everyone's gravitated towards Luca and what Luca has done. But like you said, and Pat said the similar to me, he's always held Major. He's always thought Major was every bit as good as Luca, maybe a bit stronger. Obviously, doesn't have the early pacing, but in Pat, he's in shrewd hands. And like you said, when this lad puts it together, when he starts, just stand back and admire him, because he's going to do some clock. And look, hopefully we get to see him doing it, obviously in the Michael Fortune Memorial Plate.
Yeah, it's a cracking race. Carrick Scholesy is obviously going to have plenty of support, as will Sunshine Sue. Both of them are absolutely flying at present. Both impressed in the semi-finals. Sunshine Sue, in very different fashion, overcame the bump and had to reel in Harlequin G up. Did so. He's a real strong runner, really nice type. He's got a good draw on the fence. Carrick Scholesy out in five, where he's tend to find himself a bit since he was reseeded in middle. But no, it's one of a number of exceptional races that will be on the card at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. Don't forget, Brilliant racing happening around the country as well. Kilkenny, huge crowd will be expected on Friday night for the final of the JAG Building Services and KGOBA Derby. Kilkenny track, Kevin, it's coming along. I believe the grandstand's looking fantastic. It'll be well worth a visit soon.
I will, and like I can't wait. Obviously, I'm going there all my life, and the people at Kilkenny, like we've probably been waiting this for a long, long time. But I'm over there, see it there on Mondays when we're doing the trials, and just can't wait for it to open up and welcome everybody in. Look, as everyone knows, it's one of the highest quality and difficult graded run tracks to win at, and I think when we have the stand and we can show it off a little bit better to a wider audience, it'll only go from strength to strength. And what Tom Canan has done out there is just incredible. Like, he's obviously the racing manager, but I'd say he's from racing manager to hair driver, groundsman. Like, when he went out and with the support obviously of the Kilkenny Greyhound owners and breeders to source some of the funding for this, like they really roll up their sleeves and put in a massive effort. And whatever the end result will be, it's all down to them, and they've done an amazing job. And I, for one, can't wait for it all to open up and be shown off to everybody.
Yeah, well, it'll be a good card in Shelbourne Friday, but if you are down that direction, Kilkenny will have a wonderful, wonderful nice racing on Friday night. I believe it's also a fundraiser. Is it Thomastown this
Will
week?
be
Yeah, it's Thomastown this week. So it'll be a big crowd at Kilkenny on Friday night. But that's it from us. We're looking forward to the final of the Boyle Sports Irish Grand Derby. My thanks to the exiled one who's, well, he's gone. He's down in the stall. Obviously, the old Wi-Fi is not the May West down there at the moment. We had a couple of issues with him, but we got his opinion. I think it's fair to say he's expecting Cheap Sandwiches to land the big one. I will back up that claim. I think he's the one to beat. Drewby's deploy. I think I'll end up tipping him to be second. Sorry, Kevin. Best of luck with
fine.
Barefoot on Song. But once they all come off safe and sound and we have a great Derby winner to toast, we'll all be happy come 11 o'clock Saturday night.
Oh yeah, look, of course it's going to be a great night dressing and a great final, and yeah, that's the most important thing. Hopefully the drama will be for all the right reasons this Saturday night, and we'll get to celebrate a great winner. But like you've both said, I think Cheap Sandwiches does what Cheap Sandwiches does. I think Graham will be back in the winners' enclosure again.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, we'll be doing our wrap-up video after racing on Saturday night at Shelbourne Park. Hopefully, it won't be too cold and wet. We've been caught out
Yeah.
with the elements on a couple of years. There's not too much room inside to do those wrap-up pieces, so hopefully, it won't be too bad for us. We'll manage. We will manage, and hopefully, we'll be talking again, as I said, about a wonderful Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby winner. If you do happen to have a leg, a toe, any interest in one of the finalists, the very best of luck, and we mean that from the bottom of our hearts. The fact of the matter is you're there already suggests you are already a champion, already a winner. You've achieved something great. You've got to a Derby final. But best of luck, and hopefully your dreams will come true on Saturday night. But that's it from us on Talking Dogs on this Tuesday. Don't forget, we will be back a week from now, and we will be discussing all matters Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby final related. That's it though from us this evening. And again, if you do have a leg, a toe, or any interest in one of the six finalists, the very best of luck. Do we even get this far? You've achieved a lifelong dream. Now, who knows? Your dream could go one step further. You could become a Derby champion. The very best of luck. May they all come off safe and sound. That's it from us. We'll see you next time. Good luck, good evening, God bless.
This podcast was brought to you by Greyhound Racing Ireland.